afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance right here on Channel 6. I'm Gail Teixeira, Parliamentary Chief Whip for the People's Progressive Party Civic and member of the People's Progressive Party. On this program, we shall focus on matters of public importance, bring you information and discussions on issues and matters that of concern to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30 right here on Channel 6. And as you know, I always remind you of the numbers to call when we get into the program, and I promise you today, promise you, having not allowed you to call in the last two programs, 225-0010 and 225-0008. So I'll keep my promise today, even if I have to cut what I'm doing to make sure that you have time. And as I always inform you that the Office of the Leader of the Opposition is open 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street, just opposite the Border Cricket Ground. And we're open from every day, Monday to Friday, including Saturday's half day. And you can come in and bring issues that you want to have guidance on. You need representation. You just want to meet some of the MPs or persons in the office. And of course, our telephone number is 225-3432. Remember, 32 is the number of members of Parliament we have in the opposition. And some of you may not be familiar with Freedom Radio, and so I would like to introduce you to that radio program, which is heard on FM 91.1 for Demerara, 90.5 for Burpees, and 90.7 for Essequibo. And on that radio program, you have a number of call-in opportunities for raising your issues, and we do try to listen and hear what people are reporting so that we can make representation. There's a program called Morning Rush, 6 to 8 o'clock, Monday to Friday, and it's a call-in program. The chat is on every Monday to Friday from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And so that entire program is call-in. There's a program called Spectrum, which is from 5 to 7 o'clock on Mondays to Fridays, and you can call in as well. And Doc Luncheon, this is Dr. Luncheon's program on Fridays from 9 to 8 o'clock, is also a call-in program, and the numbers are 231-9546 and 231-9547. Last week we marked May the 11th, 2 years ago, when people went from 6 o'clock in the morning to elect their government for the next 5 years. And today, May the 18th, 2017, 2 years later, we shall focus on answering a particular question I'm going to put to you, the viewers. Have your lives and that of your families improved in the last 2 years? Have your lives gotten worse, or has there been no change in your lives over the last 2 years? I asked this question on the first anniversary of the APNU AFC government, and I'm asking you the same question now at the second anniversary. I shall open the phones, as I said earlier, so that you can have your say. So 2 years later, let's examine where we are as a people and a nation under the one-seat APNU AFC government. The last program we dealt a lot with, I had with me Dr. Frank Anthony and Bishop Edgell. So we're continuing along that strain, looking at what are the achievements. And so APNU AFC coalition promised during the election time a fresh start and a time to change. Their manifesto stated that they would be inclusive, they'd clean up corruption and be more efficient. Of course, in comparison to the PPPC government, they promised the people of Guyana a good life. Where are we today? Are we experiencing a good life? The good life? The APNU AFC government celebrated their second anniversary by listing 125 achievements, which they published in a special center page in the media. And I don't know if any of you have seen it or taken the time to read it. The APNU AFC government has claimed that it did well as a government and that Guyana is moving forward. Well, here are some of the claims in the 125 achievements. The Berbice Bridge tolls reduced, yeah, and the government is subsidizing that. And so are you, the taxpayers, so that take with one hand, you give with one hand, you take back with another hand. So, cleaner city? Well, let's hear the Georgetown comments on that. Certain sections may be spruced up, but other sections are in terrible state, and the canals and drainage are in really bad state. And so, your views. Local government elections, yes, we had those, and the PPP won 48 out of 71 local authorities, and 6 are disputed because there's a tie in those 6 NDCs. They brought in the AML-CFT legislation, yes they did, having stopped it twice from taking place in the earlier parliament, and that they claim to be clamping down on money laundering and fuel smuggling. Well, the US State Department report, which recently came out a week or 2 ago, says that Guyana is a major transit point for money laundering and so on, and narco trafficking. And of course, the cases of fuel smuggle continue. There were 2 last year, there are 2 more this year, and there's a 3rd one going investigated right now. So, that claim, can it stand? Buses for school children. Yes, there are some regions that have got some buses, and in total, from what we can calculate, there are about 6 buses and 4 boats. Well, that's good for those areas and what children are benefiting, but 100,000 children are in the school system, in the nursery, primary, and secondary schools. So when they have this blanket thing that they've given buses for school children, it's not there. 6 buses can't fit 100,000 children on board. They paved the way for 4G internet, and this was started before 2015, and it was not their achievement, it is the achievement of the telephone communications companies. Rekindle pride of country. Now, how do you measure that? How do you measure that? Do you measure that by the numbers who come out at flag raising? Do you measure that with green and yellow everywhere? How do you measure that? But I'll say this, that if you check the US Embassy and their own statements about the number of visa applications, it seems to be a lot of people who are proud of Guyana but who are exiting rather rapidly. And so even the American ambassador in February 2016 had said that the numbers had climbed alarmingly and they were seeing about 60,000 applications. The next claim, they lowered the crime rate. Well, I don't know where they're living in Wish Never Never Land, but the crime rate is not descending, and that every day we're witnessing murders, armed robberies, shootings, rape, the increase in rape, for example. And so the police don't want to anymore provide the figures, they're only providing percentages, since we have been monitoring what's going on with crime. They've restored collective bargaining. Now, this was an issue, if any of you listened to the May Day speeches, you would have heard Lincoln Lewis talking about the fact that the collective bargaining promise, which they promised, has been unfulfilled. Better drainage and irrigation, I ask you to look around your areas, and even now where they're building the new Lillian Bridge, the canal is totally filled up from with what you call ironweed, all the way from the back of South, all the way up to Lillian. So drainage and irrigation, that's a main canal to drain the south of the city. And then there are a whole set of things in the 125 that are not complete. The J.O.F. Haynes Law School of the Americas launched. Yes, it was launched, but it isn't there yet. And it's a private investment, a private university, not a government investment. A string of laws that have not yet been tabled, amendments to Integrity Commission, the Code of Conduct, and constitutional reform. These are claims of achievements. When you achieve something, is that you've actually done it. So you can't say that the child has done well in school if you haven't got the report card. You know that the child's working hard or they're doing their best, but you can't say the child has done well until you see what they rank. Are they 3rd in the class? Are they 10th in the class? Did they get 50% or 80%? So let's contrast these so-called achievements with a reality check. So let's go through the reality check and what the Americans call fact checks, F-A-C-T, checks. This, you know, is a very now popular issue in the United States, in the media, in relation to some of the statements made by President Trump and so on. So, number 1, fact checked or reality checked. A booming economy they inherited is now on a downward spiral, with every single sector doing badly. Number 1. Number 2, massive spending and massive borrowing to fund activities that do not support economic growth. Arches, you know, putting up a wall around OP that is now being painted yellow and green, painting OP green, and so forth. These are frivolous and unnecessary spending. And obviously an indication to everybody that if you're not APNO AFC, maybe you don't belong here. A depreciating, now a third, as a depreciation foreign exchange value, as well as the scarcity of accessing foreign currency, and the imposition of draconian measures by the government in an attempt to stem the downward slide of the Guyana dollar. And this has been reported in the newspapers by a number of people. 4, a conservative estimate of 6,000 people being employed in the state sector and in private entities that have closed down by Shenling, Barama, for example, number of restaurants, nightclubs, Demerara Timbers, GT&T and Digicel have been laying off workers. So outside of what are the ones that have been lost and terminated in the public sector, including the 1,700 Wales Estate workers and the 1,972 Amerindian Community Service officers, conservative estimate is 6,000. And with an additional 10,000 expected to be unemployed once the government pushes through with the closure of 3 more sugar estates. And of course the private sector is laying off people and or keeping people on but giving them less hours of work, so therefore they receive less money. 5, increased hardships on local farmers with increased land rentals and taxation and the removal of concessions on agricultural machinery. 6, over 200 new tax measures, including the tax measures that are being put on the small miners that could decimate the mining sector. Right now our economy is totally dependent on what happens in gold. As we said, all the other sectors are doing very, very badly. And so, in fact, Minister Jordan admitted that they had $30 million less being gained or from the export market for Guyana. And so the small miners, medium miners have been complaining because a lot of their tax concessions, their concessions on machinery have been removed. And so the one sector that is kind of bolstering us all up has now become the target of this gunning. Does that make sense? I don't know if you're a housewife and you're running your house, whether you're going to cut your nose to spite your face. So we go on. Number 6, taxes on essential items, including health and education goods and services, have been removed, so that they have, the zero-rated tax, the zero rating of essentials goods and services has been removed, and the imposition of exempt status, which means that they're vatable. No new investment in 2 years, an escalation in crime, which I referred to earlier. A $8.5 billion settlement of cases with no clear process, a move that has exposed the Treasury to billions of dollars in losses. And you're also seeing that in court cases at the CCJ that we also have to pay. And in the case of Rhodesia, which was the first case that the Caribbean Court of Justice ruled on, that the government gave Rhodesia all the money without saying to Rhodesia that they owed a lot of money to the Guyana Revenue Authority in income tax, corporate tax, etc., so that no one knows if that money has been paid over to revenue for our country. Scholarships have been given to government ministers and their children and family, while hundreds from working class families are applying and not getting considered. The government's on a spending spree with over $4 billion spent between January 2016 and February 2017 on drugs and medical supplies with no public tendering process. And yet, there are shortages of drugs and medical supplies in the hospitals and health centers across the country. So you spend $4 billion in a matter of 14 months, no tendering, no public procurement, and yet. And there's the minister talking about pilfering. Well, $4 billion worth of drugs, I was a minister of health, is an awful lot of drugs. And because they have been purchasing so badly, because they want to give their friends some of the contracts, the system is depleted. But $4 billion worth of drugs is a handsome set of drugs. And it's not, even if there were pilfering, and people had pilfered to $100 million worth of drugs, where's the 3.9 billion? Where are those drugs? Where are those medical supplies? When doctors don't have gauze, they don't have surgical knives, they don't have gloves and so on, basic things that they need in a hospital, not doctors and nurses, sutures. And of course, you know the joke that was told at our press conference last week, where at New Amsterdam Hospital, they needed a certain pump that is used. It's really like a seal that is used to drain the chest if it has blood in it, or in a trauma case, in an accident case or trauma case, where they have to drain the fluid out of the cavity, the chest cavity. And they, lo and behold, because they fired a lot of people who know what they're doing in the hospital, and terminated them and brought in some of their political guys, they ordered a submersible pump, the kind of one that, not the one that you'd put in your chest, obviously. And this is the idea, an example of the incompetence of this government. We are continuing on the various points, witch hunting of political opponents, with special target on the PPPC and PPP leaders. Moves that are discriminatory, vindictive, and divisive in employment and appointment to boards. We are seeing more open state-sponsored ethnic and political discrimination reminiscent of 30 and more years ago. The lack of consultations with national stakeholders in major issues. Lack of accessibility to national stakeholders, including trade unions, business community, and National Two-Showers Council, all wanting to meet the president. All want to be able to feel that the ministers aren't seeing them, and they wait a long time for the ministers to see them. But they need action, they need someone to hear them, to be able to intervene, and the belief is that the president has the power to change, to be able to review a decision of the government, and to be able to bring some relief to people. So many of them are still waiting. The political interference in the judiciary and intimidation and bullyism of members of the judiciary is frightening. And most recently, the president has said that Basil William doesn't have to apologize to Justice Holder. My. Because he hasn't been charged with contempt, he doesn't need, and he did not behave in a contemptuous behavior. Well, you know, when you play this game, as this government is doing, people are watching, and so them guys are going to be brought before the court, whether they're criminals, civil cases. I want to see if they behave like Mr. Williams, whether the judiciary will be as gracious as they have been to Mr. Williams, and not charge them for contempt of court. We shall see. It is only a matter of time before somebody in the court does exactly what Mr. Williams says, and let's see what the judiciary is saying. Of course, we have talked about the lack of transparency and accountability, and that in September on this program and later in October, we exposed 25 scandals that took place between May, when the government came in June 2015, right through to October 2016. Well, and the first place we read this publicly is right here on this program in September. Then we went and did a formal press conference in October. That list of scandals and scams have grown from 25 in October to 34 by May 2017. And over 80% of these scandals refer to corruption and breach of procurement and financial rules and regulations. And so I'll give you a couple of the new ones that have come in. And so, a couple of the new ones, because you heard some of the new ones, the old ones. Chicken importation to non-existent, non-registered companies. That's number 26. 27, the wind farm, where the Lloyd Singh, one of their financiers, who also gave them their AFC, their party office in Kitty. It's payback time, no? The purchase of Antifect in drinking water at GWI. First of all, no procurement process, but more than that, it's a health hazard to the population, and this was done without anybody knowing. So that's 28. 29, the contract for GPL prepaid meters, having a tender, cancelling it, going back again in tender, cancelling it, and the third time round, giving it to the person who was $1 billion over the engineer's estimate. This is so highly irregular and corrupt, it's unbelievable. Number 30, the contract for the water treatment plants. Tenders have been cancelled twice before, and before finally being awarded, and awarded to those that I guess they wanted to get the tenders. That's 30. 31, procurement of drugs and medical supplies I spoke about earlier, and I can give you more details of that as we go along. But of fact that the Georgetown Hospital, that in 2016, the Ministry of Public Health expended $1.6 billion, 96% of their budget that was for emergency purchases and not by public tender. The public hospital in 2016 was allocated $2 billion, and over $700 million was spent without public tender. In 2017, the public hospital has spent $2.6 billion without tender for medical supplies and drugs. And so and it goes on and goes on in that vein. 32, the ongoing saga of Jubilee Park keeps going forward. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. I think we're in Chapter 4 right now. Between December 2016, and I think Chapter 4 would have been December 2016 to Republic 2017, where money was spent to spruce it up for independence. And of course, more money is being spent now for independence. These are not budgeted sums of money, by the way, but the shock, of course, was December 2016, during the budget for 2017 debate, where $500 million was allocated to pay off contractors. And as I said, more money has been spent for Republic and now independence. These are not in the budgets for 2017, and so we expect there'll be a supplementary financial papers to cover some of these accounts. But again, Durban Jubilee Park, or Jubilee Durban Park, has cost, as of December 2016, over $1 billion. The $500 million was allocated to the contractors is less than what was owed. Over $700 million was owed to contractors for Durban Park at the point of December 2016. And the government put $500 million in, and basically said to the contractors, the minister said to the contractors, take it or leave it. One contractor, who is a close associate of one of the top-ranking people in the city council, was owed over $400 million. That's a lot of, well, again, none of this with tenders, none of them with public procurement, etc. And the corruption continues unabated. Number 33, bribery at the highest levels. Not satisfied with huge salary increases and benefits, some ministers are being said to be greedy, and there are more and more reports of paying off ministers to get licenses for contracts, etc. And so we can see this going on all the time. That is now 33, before I lose count. Yeah. And then we have number 34, which has to do with nepotism. And I spoke about this in one of the programs, the number of people who have been hired in the public service who are, for example, a minister has his sister working in his office who doesn't have the qualifications, and he also has, for good measure, his brother-in-law and a nephew working with him, all at very special salaries. We have special prosecutors being hired to target PPP leaders, and these are from basically 5 of them, and they're basically from 2 law firms owned by, run by, 2 ministers. And so this is the incestual kind of arrangement. We have, for example, the Prime Minister's office is replete with advisors, security, family members, etc., etc. So the nepotism and that's a form of corruption continues. Number 34. So, and we're leaving out a number of issues because of speed, and I want to make sure that you have time to call in. And in this thing, the government has said that they've hired 2,000 people on contract and through the public service. This is according to Trotman's speech, Minister Trotman's speech at May Day 2017, to fill the bureaucracy. Well, we know already that 1,000 additional contracts have been issued as of 2016. So between June 2015 and June 2016, they hired over 1,000 people on contract. after having attacked us for having people on contract. And they've had another 1,000 people that are specifically placed in certain ministries, and we know that they will be becoming rather useful to the government when we approach elections. And so they're preparing the grounds. So that's procurement, the big one on the list. And of course, two more to finish up on: undermining constitutional measures and provisions on human rights. And of course, the one that has been in the press now for months is the issue of the appointment of the GCOM chairman and the rejection of the names of person lists submitted by the leading opposition to fill the chairman in accordance with the Constitution. And so this is a major issue. If you have no chairman of the commission can't meet. And so the commission has not met from November last year, from April last year, August last year, except for February when Serge Bally called a meeting, although he had said he'd resigned already, of the commission to extend Mr. Lowenfield's contract for another 3 years as it was expiring. And so nothing has happened with the Elections Commission. We have the problem with the Judiciary and the Judicial Service Commission, and the Service Commissions being undermined. And of course the last one, being Chief Whip, I can't not say it, and that is undermining parliamentary democracy. The separation of powers between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary are being completely undermined, and therefore the executive control of the legislature, which is supposed to be separate, and legislature as the highest lawmaking body with the Public Accounts Committee and all these oversight committees, is to oversight government. So it's a checks and balances between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. This is being undermined by the government, and obviously we are being muzzled. Our rights as a opposition in Parliament are being undermined, and we've given examples in the press from time to time. So that reality check and claims and achievements of 125. Interestingly enough, not one of the achievements talk about the quality of life. Not one of the issues say, what are the achievements we've had with children? Are children's health better? Have we been able, as a country, to improve the immunization rates when in fact the immunization rates have declined because they're not buying the vaccine? So you have a decline in vaccination rate. You know, the disease pattern of children improving? Have we reduced infant mortality? Have we reduced maternal mortality? Because now then there's nothing coming out about maternal mortality, although women are dying in labor and post-labor, post-delivery, with what are cases that we call maternal mortality. You know, do we have any idea of a reduction in the number of persons dying from suicide or from murder or from accidents? There is nothing. What about the HIV/AIDS figures? Have we been able to maintain the figure we were able to get in 2015, where we had some level of control? Or is it on the increase, or it is on the decrease? Are the programs to do with mother to child, reducing transmission of HIV/AIDS from mother to child, still going on? And is that figure of 1% being held, or has that been increased, or is it decreased? We don't know. What about the malaria figures, the tuberculosis figures? These are what deal with quality of life issues. What is the status of women in Guyana? What have they done for women? All we know that professional women in the public service are having a bloody hard time. And they've been firing and terminating and sending on leave highly qualified women and harassing them and publicly embarrassing them. And we will be coming out with more data on that. What is the issue with youth? Have youth been able to get more jobs, more training, more possibilities, more opportunities? There's nothing about quality there. It is a list of issues. None speak to the quality of life of our people. Have they changed? You know, and so when you see an arch being opened, people get browned off. When you see the wall that is going up at Office of the President, 10-foot wall, huge, massive thing, totally unnecessary, because even Burnham in his time had a chain link fence, and we continued with that. But I understand Brexit and the attack on Parliament and so on means we have to take extra precautions. I'm not saying that we mustn't be security conscious, but the wall is ugly and it's an extraordinarily expensive intervention and it's extravagance. If you wanted to put up security walls, there are other ways of doing it. And there's something called technology now. And yet 6,000 solar panels that were to go to complete the solar household program in the interior, those 6,000 solar panels were kept for State House and Office of the President. I haven't seen them. Maybe they have them tucked away somewhere. Maybe it's behind the wall. That's why I'm not seeing them. But 6,000 households that could have benefited from in the interior, where children could be able to read and study at night instead of using juk lamp or something, was whisked away by this government that decided that these small solar panels, there's 65 kilowatts, had to go at Office of the President. So nothing in the 125 achievements talk to measuring quality of life, of being able to say they've been able to tackle this problem, they've been able to make progress with this. You know, who expects in 2 years for you to solve everything? But the list of 125 is a list to try to fool people or to say to people they've done something. In fact, it's a miserable list. It's a dismal list because it does not say to the people, we build houses. They're talking about a new national housing strategy. They stopped all the housing programs from the time they got into government. Now they're talking building condos. So a number of the schemes that were laid out and demarcated are now, and people haven't got their house lots, and now grass is everything taking over them. That's what I'm talking about, quality of life. Have people been able to get water? Well, water is now vatable, so is electricity, so are other items. So it's coming to your time now, you the viewers, to have your say. I'm sure you have a lot to say on the program today. So let me repeat the question. Have your lives and that of your families improved in the last 2 years? Have your lives gotten worse, or has there been no change in your lives over the last 2 years? Let's hear your views. Call in, please. And I have my first caller here. Yes, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
I have a very important problem here.
Yes, sure.
The dialysis. A lot of people dying with this dialysis.
Yes.
They cannot afford the price that Mr. Dubé is giving us. I mean, he's trying his best. Trying to meet the poor people, but it's very, very, very expensive.
Yes, I know.
12,000 every session. And if I got to do 3 sessions per week, where am I going to find the money?
Yeah.
And this government said they care for the people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm glad if our party, your party, can fight, get this. I mean, helping hundreds of people with this plan.
Yeah.
The hospital doesn't have anything to help. They have sending people from the hospital to do dialysis because there is no liquid for wash the blood.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can look into this for us.
Yeah, thank you for calling, and you're right. Almost every program or every other program, there is a dialysis patient calling in, not only about the cost, but you know, the fact that the government, when we were in government, we used to give a subsidy.
Yes.
That has been removed, and also access, even diabetic patients that are not using dialysis, that are using, you know, the drugs and insulin and stuff, are complaining about, the one, they can't get it, and two, the cost when they have to buy it.
Because it's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to take it up for you because we have raised it with NIS, we've raised it with the Ministry of Health. I know that letters were written months and months ago. We will try again, and maybe it's time that we try to get it raised in the Parliament, okay?
We understand that Mr. Dubé did the duty-free concession, they take it away.
Yes,
but
yes.
that forced him to raise
the
dialysis for the poor people.
Yes.
You know? And
yes.
We must thank you very much. He's helping the poor people. Dubé is really helping the people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the problem you're having. And as I said, every 2 programs minimum, there are people calling in with this problem. So thank you for calling, and stay strong. Okay? Okay, thank you. Hello?
Hello, President. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
President, good afternoon to you. And All the best in your future endeavors, you
Thank
and
you.
the other members of the opposition.
Thank you, sir.
My concern is today. You getting me clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
Yes, ma'am. Just give me a listening ear, please.
Sure.
Now, my concern. I don't understand. One ethnic group feel that they have the brains to run this country. Now, Africa or Ethiopia is the cradle of civilization. India is East Ethiopia. Now, those are the two major parties that we got to play in any election. Now, I don't understand. We need to come together as a people with all the brilliant mind, all the brilliant heads, and get things done. You got some skulldugglers on both sides that they feel, well, the government is legitimate, and you got some who feel, well, this is them time, and we got problems. It is all the burden on the taxpayers. Now, I heard you spoke about the Jubilee Park. I think it was a nice thing to remind the public about the Jubilee Park. But we could make a good laugh off of the Jubilee Park, as you say that there's a lot of money spent on it, like it's going to be a white elephant. I interpret you the way I interpret you. Now, but let me put the Jubilee Park recently done with the charity wharf that float away, and let me make a big laugh. Let me make something nothing to laugh about. And let me stop the bickering and the biting. We are getting nowhere. You know, ma'am? Let me try. See if we could work together. Sit down and have dialogue like human. That only goes to human. Dialogue and talk. Sit down and talk. Right? Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Clearly, the issue is that we have to, as a people, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of our politics, this is our country. This is where they say our navel string buried. This is where we belong. Many go abroad and come back. Many don't come back ever. But this is ours, and we have a blessed country, and we have a wonderful people. And our diversity is our strength. Unfortunately, that we have had divisions over the years. And in this government, unfortunately, you see this constitutional reform we went through in 1990 to 2001, tried very hard because it was a bipartisan, multi-stakeholder group that brought about the constitutional reform and all the reforms, and all these reforms that became the Constitution had to have 2/3 majority. So it forced political parties in the House to reach consensus. And so some parts of the Constitution may not be the greatest, but it's what we were able to agree to as a group and vote majority and 2/3. And have, in some cases, unanimity. We agree to everything. And the constitutional reform process is a major example of how this government, how this country, made up of two political forces, can work together and to be able to produce a document which is considered extraordinarily progressive in the Caribbean. We have the Parliament appointing constitutional bodies. We have the President being counter-checked by the leading opposition, and a variety of power-sharing formula, which the present government and the party in the PNC, which is the major party in that government, this government, were proponents of, because they felt that PPP wasn't what they wanted it to be. But nevertheless, they brought a number of these changes. And we worked together and found common space, took them to Parliament, voted, and gave our total support, the two parties. So what is difficult to deal with in answering the gentleman's call, who's been very polite and very kind, and I'm not going to get into a fight with him, and I don't wish to, but that the classic example of what we could achieve as a people is that constitutional reform process. It was driven by us. It was driven by us, the Guyanese, not any foreign intervention, nobody telling us that we needed to do anything. We did it ourselves. It was brought about by a number of events that led to it. It led to a period of normalcy It ended violence, and we were able to sit down and work together. The human rights provisions of this Constitution are now enshrined. Before they were just principles. So if you wanted to invoke the human rights section of the Constitution in the 1980 Constitution, you had to wait for a law to be passed to make it to be able to make it enforceable. In the constitutional reform process, the entire human rights section of the Constitution is constitutionally enshrined. So if you're discriminated against, and there are grounds, it says that, you can go to the courts, straight on a constitutional motion. It doesn't have to have a law. These are major achievements for us as a country. And I point to that because 10 years later, the constitutional reform process ended in 2001. We then went and amended the parliamentary standing orders, and it created all these expanded committees and new committees which the Constitution referred to in the 2005-2006 period. We worked together. We still were opposition and government, still had differences of views, but there was an understanding of trying to have a greater inclusivity between the government and the opposition, between the PPPC and the PNCR. That ended in 2001, then you had the parliamentary process, as I said. It is now, what, 16 years later? And we're seeing all of that unravel. And that is why people are upset. That is why people feel marginalized. That's why people feel alienated. Because when you have the government doing what they're doing in Parliament, where our motions and our questions have to be vetted by Office of the President, and then amended by the Speaker, and the wording changed without any consultation with us, the move in the motions, where a motion that is amended by the Speaker himself, that is brought by us, the PPPC, he amends it, approves it, puts it on notice paper, it's on the order paper then, and then decides it should be withdrawn. This is the one on the motion calling for the revocation of VAT on goods and services. So, and this goes on, this goes on. I could sit in a program, 3-4 programs in a row, and just talk about what's going on in Parliament and how hurtful it is. As personally, as a member of those, the Human Rights Task Force of the Constitutional Reform Commission, as a member of the PPPC in the Parliament in those days, debating these constitutional reforms and working together, amending words to get unanimity between us, and to see all of that unraveling, and to see what is females, professionals, I don't know who they vote for, and I really don't care, being terminated, young women with master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, some of them were scholarship students. When I see 1,972 Amerindian community service officers who were earning $30,000 a month as part-time supporters to the Amerindian village councils. So every village lost probably, you know, $60,000 a month. Families lost and villages lost. And so when you calculate the human factor of people losing their jobs, and you calculate the loss of income as another factor, and the fact that they can't get jobs still, what is it? Because they're the wrong ethnic group? They're the wrong political persuasion? Who leads in this? It is the onus is on the government. Just like people used to attack President Jagdeo, President Ramatar, President Jetty Jagan, President Janet Jagan, and President Sam Hines, that they were responsible for everything that went wrong, so too, President Granger, the buck stops at his door. You can't have it where the PPPC presidents were guilty of all things, and the APNU AFC president is somehow in some cocoon that he's not to be touched. Ultimately, the buck stops at the president, because we have an executive president in this country, not a ceremonial president. The head of state in this country is the president. There's no head of government in this country. There's a head of state. And so when you have the Durban Park, I said Durban Park is an extravagance. And the issue of Durban Park, regardless of whether people liked it or not, is the procurement aspect, the lack of transparency and accountability. And did we need to spend over $1 billion, and still spending, when you had the stadium, which was used for a world-class event, the ICC West Indian Cricket World Cup? You have a world-class event that can fit 16,000 people in the stands, 5,000 more on the, the ramp, and in the circle, the actual pavilion inside, you can fit another 30,000 people. You have parking, you have washrooms, you have lights, you have a VIP lounge, you have a media center, you have a center for medical clinic for anybody, you have change rooms, you have places for the artists to change. Cost us $16 million US loan from the Indian government. And that was how many years ago? 10 years ago. The actual physical location would have allowed also for people from Soesdijk East Bank to be part of it. But the government wants a legacy. Okay, the government wants a legacy project. They want to put their stamp to say this is what we did when we were in government. Cool, I can live with that. Just like they want to put up an arch at Crown Dam. I can live with that. You want to do that? You want to put your stamp as a government to show that you were here? But whatever you do, transparency and accountability, they're procurement laws. And that we are the ones, the PPPC, who brought in the Procurement Act, which is now copied by many Caribbean countries in the CARICOM that did not have any such Procurement Act. And this is considered a model piece of legislation to be followed, and it was being implemented. And there were websites, the National Procurement Tender Administration website, where you could have found the minutes of the opening of the tenders, the minutes of the NPTA board decisions on who got the tenders after the evaluations are done, the awards of the contracts, as well as the advertisement for contracts. So we leave it at that. You go on the site now and see what you find. None of that. So transparency and accountability. So I hope my friend who called in will not think that I'm dissing his views. I'm saying that the proof is in the pudding. If you want people to work together, you have to show respect, you have to listen, and you have to be inclusive. You can't be saying to an opposition and assuming the elections were free and fair, which we don't believe, that we have a court challenge on that, 2 years later still not heard. They must remember the difference between the votes, assuming that, let's say, put aside the issue there's an election petition, is 4,500. Less than 1% different between the APNU AFC and the PPP. And in March 2016, at the local government elections, we won by 30,000 votes more than the APNU AFC in less than a year. So, but let's assume, if we were in government and it was 4,526 difference between us and the opposition, the game would have been different. But the government believes and behaves as if they have won by a major majority. It's less than 1%, less than one seat. A seat in Parliament is about 7,000 votes. This is 4,500. And any democratic country, you would have had a recount. And that is where Surge Valley and certain other external forces take responsibility for denying a recount. Denying a recount. By region, national, and even in the last event on the Friday before the elections, President Ramatar went and said, look, just count 30 boxes. And if there's a problem, we then open all the boxes. If there's no problem, we back off. It was agreed to by Mr. Surge Valley at 8:30 in the morning on the Friday, and by 11 o'clock he reversed his position. So if we are a little bit irritable about these events, you must forgive us, but these are facts. Okay, let's take another call. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes.
I can hardly hear you. Could you talk a bit louder?
Yeah, I got to give a problem topic about all this things that happen because we go to hospital, we carry children at hospital, the breathing. Oh my God, this place so stinks. You can't stay
Which is public
inside.
hospital?
Yes, and no medication of it.
Yeah.
Too. We had to come out and buy medication.
Do you remember what the drug was you had to buy?
My husband knows the drug, but he's not home right
Is it antibiotic or what?
now.
Oh,
It's a spray light.
saline.
Yes.
So the patient was hospitalized?
Huh?
The patient was hospitalized?
No, but he just taking him to the hospital. They give me a hard time. They tell they're so long, they're waiting to sit down.
Yeah.
Allow me to go in with him.
Yeah, well, I think you've seen that Dr. Vindi Prasad, who is a member of parliament on our side, has been going to visit these hospitals. And when she went to public hospital to visit with the parliamentary committee, the chairman of the board and the chief executive officer of the hospital refused to allow them to go check the bond to see how many drugs and medical supplies were there. But we'll keep dealing with it, all right?
Okay, and
Thank-
then the next thing again, I'm glad in sugar workers, everybody should come down to protest in town. This is damn nonsense to go on.
Yeah, well, every man counts and every
And
woman
funny,
counts.
We just imagine people ask donation to send a children in school or all these.
Yeah.
So hard. It's so hard.
No, and they said they have 100. The government says 125 achievements.
What I do about this with my husband's family there is some of them, the children they even get, the parents they even got money to send a children to school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they even got the poor children there.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for them.
I know it's going to get worse.
Nothing for them.
This government doesn't have a heart, you know. Sometimes I wonder if they have a heart at all.
Yes, and when they send them do so much for them, so much for their sugar workers. I
Yeah.
don't know what will become of them children.
Yeah, well, we have to show the government that the people are dissatisfied.
I think they should protest to come down, Josh.
Yeah, well, they had a massive one last week. I think that was very good.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that as the government refuses to listen, then people will continue to, to protest.
Yeah, and then let them do so much good to this country, but let them look back, and let them look back. The whole world and see them.
Yeah,
The whole
exactly.
world and see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, my dear. You have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I just want to tell y'all, when y'all go in there, y'all have to know what to do, because you see how they're behaving right about now.
Yeah.
They're behaving very bad, because they cannot run this country. No matter what they do, they could never run Guyana. They cannot run Guyana. I could tell you that. They cannot run their own house. They can't run Guyana. Y'all try. I know y'all never lose the election. And y'all will never lose one. But it's just, everybody know go on, so we're going to live with it 2 more years.
Okay, thank you very
Yes.
much. And stay positive. We'll
Yes.
win. We have to work hard, though.
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. We have about 7 minutes more, so I'm going to take probably one more call. Yeah, and my 2 lines going at the same time. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good day, Mr. Sheehan.
Yes, good day.
You're talking about the health problem. We used to get a good look after at the public hospital. You all used to be soldiers floating around.
Yeah,
You used
they
to go to Diamond. Then you
Uh-huh.
used to send people at Cuba. Now, if you go to the Georgetown Hospital, you got a fault in your eye with your retina or anything. They tell you clear that they don't have no physician or no surgery doctor to look after your eye.
no doctor?
No, you have to go to Trinidad or you go to the U.S.
And this is for what kind of problem?
Retina.
Oh, the retina detachment?
Yes.
Oh dear.
And it's quite a while now I run in there, and I'm getting no solution as to what to do.
And they don't, what about drugs and stuff? You're getting supply,
No,
medication and stuff like that?
No drops, not nothing. They're just
Nothing?
telling you that they cannot do nothing.
And this is at public?
Yes, at public hospital.
And there's nothing at Port Morenton Diamond either?
Nothing.
Oh dear. All right, well, we'll have to, I will talk to Dr. Vindi and our members in the Parliamentary Sectoral Committee that when they're visiting the hospitals to ask for these issues as well. Because, you know, well, the diabetic people have been very outspoken, but persons who are getting eye care have not been calling in. So I thank you for calling in, and we will take this information, all right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Take care. Okay, I think. All right, well, we're coming there to the end. Well, from the sounds of it, I'll take one more call, but it has to be a short one. So, hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hello?
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters
it's
of
me
Public
again.
Importance.
I don't want the callers to feel no way or the viewing public. But you know, when we talk about this, I'm not a party favorite affiliated party. Now, when we talking about this, the matter in court, I think with the election till now, with
Election
Mr.
petition.
Valley,
Uh-huh.
I think the matter, y'all get a hearing?
No, I'll explain to you when you come off the phone.
No,
we haven't got a hearing yet.
Therefore, it reminds me, I'm 50 and over, near for reach my 60. It
Right.
reminds me of Mr. Height and Mr. Zagan. Right, Mr. Height was busy trying to get the vote right. Mr. do not swear in Ms. Zagan, and from Mr. Height days and Ms. Zagan days, you find the lawlessness continue. You could remember the story? Just we got to make a fresh start, a new page. Mr. Jagan dead and gone. Mr. Burnham dead and gone. Nobody can think for them. We got to be very clean-hearted and very pure-handed and try and get things done. All we going is two sets of money we're spending. Is that in the court to fight something with the opposition, or investigation, what we call this thing. And you know, we people suffering.
Yeah.
We are a blessed nation. We having less than 1 million people with all the resources. Don't come there.
Yeah.
Because we had plenty resources. You could imagine now Venezuela turn back and they're hungry, they're starving. People starving around the world. Yeah, come on, let humanity prevail. Huh? Come together and sit down and talk like husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend. Go work. A soft word, turn it away rod.
Okay.
Harsh word, story tango. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We would wish for that to happen, and we would wish that to happen. But just on the election petition, it was appealed when we submitted it, and then the Chief Justice ruled that the case could go ahead, and then Lowenfield for GCOM is appealing it again, and it's stuck in the appeal court. There was no court, remember, from February, so now that Mr. Grange has appointed 2 more judges, the Court of Appeal can start hearing, and we hope they will start hearing the election petition. I hear the gentleman's plea for unity, for reconciliation, and he's right. But if there is no overture, there's no opportunity, if you're not treating each other as equals, then it doesn't work, Even in a marriage, it doesn't work. And so we have a blessed country, we have a beautiful country. If there are simple things that can reduce people's problems, poverty, VAT, removal of VAT on health and education and water, on electricity. If the government, we brought motions to this gave an opportunity for government to have supported our move, and to have been able to say, we wanted this VAT, we think it's the best way, but the opposition calling for it and other people, and we have compromised. The government knows nothing about compromise. They could have saved their face, they refused to do that. And so it is difficult, and if my friend who calls in, who is appealing for that, maybe listens to Parliament, and the amount of issues we raise in Parliament have to do with people's welfare, people's interests, the economy, development of Guyana. We take a very nationalist position, and we've said in Parliament that whatever is in the best interest of the nation and our people, we will support the government. August 17, 2015, when we entered Parliament, Mr. Jagdeo, as the leader opposition, got up and publicly said, we will support any measure and policy that will bring betterment to the people of our country and our nation. But we reserve the right to oppose, criticize anything we feel that will harm and hurt our people and nation. And that is exactly what we're doing for the last 2 years. We have not deviated from that. And therefore on the border issue, which our caller may not know, we cooperate. We're totally in support. And so the government recognizes that. We're not like in other countries where opposition government have different views on border issues and stuff like that. There's no such thing here. We clearly, as an opposition, as a party of 6 to 7 years, make it clear that the national integrity and sovereignty of our country and our territorial integrity is something that we have stood for all these years, and we've said to the government, and we've said it publicly, that we will stand by the government on this issue. So my friend, I understand your pain. I understand the pain of many people. So let me close. How can we get the government to hear what we're saying? And that is by the voices of the people. The voices of the people have to be louder. They have to be stronger. And we recognize that the levels of disappointment and dissatisfaction with the APNU AFC amongst their own supporters, among people who didn't vote at all, among people who voted for the PPPC. And so, and many of them are calling for us to come back into government and come back in quickly. So on this second anniversary of the APNU AFC in government, and next week we will be meeting and looking at our independence. So we will be next Friday having independence. Thursday will be the eve in which there will be, I guess, activities at the national park, etc., in different parts of the country. So we leave today with a second-year anniversary, which does not uphold what the government's saying, that they have done well. Regrettably, they don't want to listen and to learn from mistakes. They don't want to listen to the voice of the people. And that maybe when we come back at a third anniversary, maybe they would have listened. I have my doubts about that, but in the interest of our people, in the best interest of our people, to reduce poverty and to reduce the difficulties our people are having, I would hope they would wake up and have sense, and most of all, have a heart. So let's close the program. I'm a minute or two over, and the technician has been kind to me. I wish to thank you very much for listening to our program, Matters of Public Importance. And as always, I tell you, don't drink and drive, stay safe, have a wonderful weekend with your family and loved ones, and we'll meet again next Thursday, between 12:30 and 1:30. Right, so we meet each other then. Have a great weekend, have a safe weekend as well, and take care of yourselves. Okay? Ciao. Bye-bye. Ta-ta.